welcome to another episode of Frame and Reference. I'm your host, Kenny McMillan, and you're listening to episode 156 with Igor Martinovic and Vanja Cernjul, DPs of Jim Henson Idea Man. Enjoy.
Are you guys watching anything right now that you like? Or seen anything recently?
I've been watching mostly classics recently.
Really?
With my girlfriend, yeah. We got into this habit of, we just saw Seven Samurai at the film forum yesterday.
Oh, wow.
So that's been what we've been watching lately.
I got that on the Blu-ray.
I saw a very interesting documentary by Wim Wenders called Henson. It's about Henson Kiefer, a painter. I think for me that was like the best doc of the last year, and I like actually his feature as well. Is it Perfect Days? Is it Perfect Days?
Couldn't tell you.
Yeah, Wim Wenders' new feature as well.
It's the last series, right?
Second?
It's from last year, right? Yeah, I missed that.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, those two are like really, and from the same director, I was really surprised actually.
Yeah, I've been stuck in. I got that AMC A list, so any movie that comes out now, I'm just like, whatever. Like it's like me and 6 of my friends, and we'll just all book tickets for each other, and it shows up on your calendar, and you're like, well, I guess I'm gonna go see that.
What did you say that was good?
Dude, Didi, the movie about the Taiwanese kid growing up in the early 2000s in the Bay Area. It mirrored my own childhood so specifically, me and my sister, that we were just everyone was laughing it's like a half funny, half drama film, but it was incredible, very well made. And I just saw and then last night I saw my buddy's film Good Bad Things, about it's not about the guy with muscular dystrophy, but he has it, and he's just trying to find love and stuff. That one was pretty good too. That was more of an indie feature. They made that with like a Canon R5 C and just like 1 or 2 lights, and it looks great. I spent half the film going like, yeah, man, if I could ever get one on the big screen. I was like, oh, that's right, he shot on an R5C. Like that's
yeah.
This was not an LF production.
Yeah, I had an experience when with a friend of mine in Croatia, a director who how Croatia government it's a government funded industry. So he got some money from the government to develop a script, and he never wrote a script. And the producer was like, "We have to give this money back. It's not like this is the one we have one producer in the country. It's not like it's not like you cross the street and go to another producer." So he's like, no. I'll make a whole film just for this money. And he asked me if I would be up to shooting a film in 10 days without the script and with just like minimum crew, like 10 people, and just the camera and a couple of lenses. I was like, yes, just give me I just need a good camera and a nice hotel room. And he's like, yes, you got it. So it's like. And it was one of the best experiences I had in a long time. It was fantastic, and the film looked great because everybody was on the same page. Everybody understood like this is what we have. This is how we can make it work. The scene has to be by the window because that's where the light is. It's not like and it was fantastic. So
yeah, I was actually just talking to someone who her name is Bella Gonzalez, and we were kind of going back and forth on like that initial, there's like a happy medium between not having too many cooks in the kitchen and having like a smaller crew and being able to be creative with people that you trust and enjoy, and all the way up to, in your case, like, well, I don't know. I was going to say House of Cards, but I actually spoke to Igor about that, and he was like, that was actually a pretty small crew too. But but those larger things where maybe there's a little too much, and yeah, you get all the toys, but the experience isn't necessarily the best or the same.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, I wouldn't call House of Cards small crew.
Well,
So, yeah, that's like at least 100 people. So I don't think it's yeah. You have pre-rigging crews, you have rigging crews, you have like it's yeah. I don't know. I'm not sure what he referred to that. Like, I guess if you're looking for like really huge budgets, then it's not. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that I would like to talk about that a little, but you guys have both shot a lot of great stuff. But Vanja, have you found that like there's a happy medium for you, or because you're like Dr. Death is great and stuff, but your CV is pretty wide in terms of the types of projects you take on.
Well, I think it's like, it's good to have, train all those muscles. It's good to be able to go in with just the camera and know how to do things quickly without a lot of equipment. And because sometimes even on a big project, if you that experience will help you. For example, on House of the Dragon last year, we did a couple of scenes in a very remote location where we couldn't bring many people, and we couldn't bring we had to hand carry basically a camera, a tripod, a slider, and a couple of bounce boards. And we got some of the most epic shots that way in this huge, enormous production. So it's good to on projects like that where you have massive scenes with 4 cameras and huge stunts and 150 extras and horses and all of that. Maybe 2 days later you go and you shoot something that is just you and a director and a small skeleton crew. So I think it's great if possible, and it's hard to do, but it's great to go back and forth and always keep kind of stay in shape in every in every kind of just so you can be able to adapt quickly. I remember on Crazy Rich Asians we had it was a studio film, but still we shot it like a small indie. It was like every day a new location. It was 42. I think we had 42 locations in 38 locations in 42 days. So we were moving every day. And some days it was literally like a shooting a student film. It was just 12 people, and we had to get the scene quickly because we had to be out of the location. So it's not it's good to be flexible and keep stay in shape, as I would say. So,
Yeah,
it's
And
not.
also, I think when you go ahead, sorry.
No, just specializing in one type of production. It's not. You have to be able to do different levels of. Igor, sorry.
No. I mean, I just wanted to say, like, when you have like a 4, 5, 6 camera shoot, you're a manager. Like you have also then you have second unit shooting pile. They have splinter unit. You're managing the crews. You're managing people. You're managing trying to figure out what locations, how to do it. So it's a little bit less focused on the core of on the heart of the project, and what is like like where the photography is, because at the end it becomes more about trying to keep it under control.
Yeah. Well, and there was a point in the document in Idea Man that I thought would be interesting to discuss, and you kind of brought it up, Vanja, is like Jim got kind of sketched out about getting pigeonholed as a children's educational creator and wanted to do other things. And I feel like that's something that ends up happening to DPs, where you start out and you just want to make movies or whatever it may be, and then you find out that the only way to get hired is you make a Western, and people go, oh yeah, we need a Western guy. So then you just keep doing Westerns or whatever, And I was wondering how you guys kind of have approached your careers in regards to avoiding that pigeonhole or leaning into it even. But it sounds like you don't want to lean into it.
I don't know, Igor, do you have like, for me, it was, I got, in it, initially, I have a story about that because I was, when I finished film school, I put my reel together. I shot a few low budget, dark, low budget indies in New York. I did my reel, and I wasn't, I was looking for work. I was trying to just, but things were going well. I had films in festivals and everything, but I couldn't pay the rent. So I was like, I talked to my agent. I have to do something. Maybe I should try comedy. I don't know. And she's like, no way you'll ever get a comedy. Look at your reel. It's just all depressing silhouettes, and it's never going to work. And then I met a director at Sundance Film Festival who was there with a film. Richard Shepard was there with a film called The Matador, and we met. He wanted to hire me for his pilot. The pilot was called Ugly Betty. It was supposed to be big, glossy comedy, with just a very bright and lots of color. And he decided that he was going to hire me to do this pilot. And people from the studio was like, "What? You're crazy! This is you're going to hire this guy?" And he insisted, and I somehow miraculously got the job. And it was a very successful pilot. And all of a sudden, I was getting only calls for just comedies, and right. I couldn't, and it wasn't necessarily my choice. It was just something that. So all of a sudden, I was all the scripts I was getting and all the jobs I was getting for at least 4 or 5 years was comedies, and this was never my choice. And I enjoyed that work. I did, I met some amazing people and everything, but this was not necessarily the path I would choose when I got out of film school. So it's tricky, because I always give advice to young filmmakers and students. So it's like you just have to work as much as possible, take any work. But then you could get on a path that you haven't necessarily chosen, and it's really hard to change that. So it's. I don't have wise words about that. It's just something to be aware of when you're a young filmmaker.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I agree about this work. But the only advancement in my career that I've done are the times when I stopped working. Because when I started, I did some documentaries, then I did Men on Wire, and after Men on Wire, everything like the documentary door was open, and then I would start getting calls just for documentaries. It was like nothing else, nothing but docs, and I love docs. I love that. That's why I do them now a lot. I just basically do projects that I believe that I believe in, and I try to at least, and balancing between documentaries and narrative is actually very interesting, helpful, because documentary work gives me kind of like something to fall back to, and then in narrative world, like I have a little bit more flexibility to choose from. But basically, I stopped doing documentaries, and I said I'm going to just do narratives. So I was doing lots of narratives, lots of low budget films. And then I stopped working. I said, okay, I'm not going to do a single low budget film. And then for 2 years, I didn't work at all. There was absolutely no work. I mean, it was horrible. And I mean, I got offered for low budget features, but I didn't do them. And that's when House of Cards came on. And then they changed it as well. So I think it's important to kind of draw the line and say, okay, from now on, I've done enough of certain type of films or certain budget or certain wherever you want to do the next step. And then you start considering yourself as a fiction cinematographer, documentary, whatever is your goal. and then everyone else is going to start considering you as well, as one.
Yeah. Well, because, obviously your reel or your IMDb or your website tend to be the way that people decide whether or not they're going to call you to see previous work and stuff like that. So what led to you getting House of Cards then, after you had said, like, all right, I'm only doing top tier stuff?
That's an interesting one. So basically my agent asked me to go to an interview for a TV show. It's a TV show I didn't want to do, and I didn't want to go for the interview. And she was like, "No, you have to go." I set it up. So I went there, and thankfully I didn't get the show. But there was a person on that interview that was sitting behind. I was talking to people in front of me. There was a production, one of the line producers, who was actually behind listening to that interview. And year and a half later, he gave my information to Fincher. And then I just got the call from my agent. Fincher would like to talk to you. And I was shocked. I mean, it was like beyond shocked, because I've never done television.
Right.
I've never done, the only thing in television I've done is like, when I worked, actually with Vanja, I was like, maybe they're playing for him. So it was
Was
really
that
a
on
shock.
Nurse Jackie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We went to film school together. We go way back.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah, we're both from Croatia, and we studied together. It was like 5 of us in the class, and we were together in Shem class. Yeah,
That's awesome. I've actually interviewed a few of Fincher's previous DPs, like Cronenweth and Igor and Messerschmitt. And I'm always interested because he is such a, I hesitate to say famous, but, he, amongst filmmakers, people do look up to him. And I was wondering, as a DP, if there's anything that you learned on that production that you've taken with you to other productions.
oh, so much. I was at film school because I did all 13 episodes as the second season, and so each day, he would watch every shot for those I don't know how many months, 8 months, and make notes. And he would make notes that certain things that I didn't even consider that are important, and so much about, like, because it was a very specific show, and he's like very, very detailed about how much detail do you have in shadows. Does your black jacket blends into the seat, or you have some separation there, like things just like so many notes, like about framing, about how about that, how it was beautiful, it was amazing. And we all like spent every night. We would go to my gaffer and camera operator would go to my apartment. We would sit down and prepare for the next day, because you don't want to go get a bad note from Fincher,
Yeah.
And he's amazing. He's like literally better cinematographer than many. He sees everything. He's like completely aware of like every light that comes in, and questions everything, and it's amazing. It's really amazing.
Yeah, I've always been fascinated by his lighting, because obviously there's been a lot of different DPs who have worked with him, but the lighting and the look tends to remain pretty consistent, except for maybe Darius. Apparently he got to do whatever he wanted, but for 7. But I was wondering, because not only is the light pretty, but there, from what I've heard, there's a great economy of motion for everything. Like there's everything's got to happen relatively quickly but precise. And I was wondering if you could speak to how you can achieve in any production like that economy, that efficiency.
I mean, first you need to prepare. You need to if there is a pre-rigging crew, they have to know what you're doing. Also, I think it's simplicity. It's like, first you have to find the concept that corresponds with the narrative, and that concept is basically something that will give you direction, how you're gonna light, how you're gonna frame, and simplicity is always something that I look towards, like the most simple lighting. I mean, Vanya and I, we come from a school where, like, we try to light things with like single light source, so like instead of having like 15 sources and people walking through the sources, if you can light with the one single light source, you light the space, like the space would be lit in a natural environment, that's one of the ways. And like I think finding the right position for the camera, it's also kind of dictates the story dictates where the camera is gonna be, like. And I don't know. I don't think I'm not like so much for a flamboyant style of filmmaking. I rather try to find a simple solution. But one you can probably add to that.
There's a famous quote from Albert Einstein that I always say. Supposedly he said, "Everything should be as simple as possible, but not simpler." Which is always. There's also a line where it's like it's as simple as possible. It shouldn't be any simpler.
Yeah, I think it was crap. Who was it? The DP. Oh Christ, Godfather.
Gordon Willis.
Yeah, he has a pretty famous quote where he was like, "There's a important difference between simple and simplistic."
Right, of course.
Yeah, simplistic. Yeah. I think he says like simplistic is a pie in the face, but simple is, fine. And I often think of that similar quote. But kind of the same question back on you, Vanya. But you go from 30 Rock and Nurse Jackie and Orange is the New Black. How do you weave your way into House of the Dragon?
Well, that was it took. I wanted to do more dramas, and I was always drawn to like period shows, and that was something I wanted to do. And it's also you never know what's going to get you there. I remember I was on vacation on an island in the Adriatic, and I got a call from my agent that if I would like to come back to do a short industrial film, and I didn't really want to leave my vacation, go back to New York in August. But she's like, it's an interesting director. You should meet him. And the director was Dan Minahan. Dan directed some Game of Thrones, and I came back. We did this short film. Igor, I think, was also part of that production, and it was nothing. Just we did it, and I just thought I ruined my summer. Now I came back to New York to do the short, whatever. A couple of years later, Dan called me and he said, "I'm a showrunner on a Netflix show, Marco Polo. Would you be interested in to come?" And I jumped on the opportunity. I thought it was at that time it was a perfect project for me, and that started changing things. But as I said, you never know how. What's going to change your career path. So it was Marco Polo actually that started getting me more towards that kind of material that I was more interested in. So it took a while.
Do you find that working on those, not that it's like an effects heavy show, obviously the dragons are EFX, but like, do you find on those types of shows that it's any more different than shooting something, a two-person drama in a room? You just have to account for where there might be some actual special post stuff, or is that scale of production does that scale of production take up a lot more brain power?
Well, that show specifically is interesting because, as I said before, you have days where it's just a skeleton crew and you go up, hike a mountain and
right.
Just getting some like epic shot of the landscape in North Wales. But then you have scenes that are all blue screen, or you have scenes with in the medieval town in Spain. So it's every day is very different. So I like that kind of television, but it's really like a film. It's just every day is completely different, and you have to adjust. You can't really fall into cookie cutter mode. You have to it's every day you have to be focused and adapt and every scene and every day is specific. So that's why I enjoyed that show, because it was and also a lot of location work. You would be surprised how much of House of the Dragon season 2 was practical. Actually, all those sets were built. The first season they shot a lot on the volume stages because they still had to deal with the pandemic, and they couldn't really go on locations. And I think they built the largest volume stage in the world. It was something huge. I haven't seen it because they took it down, and they decided for season 2 that they would put those assets into going on location more and building more sets. So when I arrived there, when I saw the sets, I was just really blown away. It was, I always say this is when it was when I was in film school, you look at the classical sets from you look at photos from making of Cleopatra or Ben-Hur. Oh my God, I'll never be able to do this because it'll all be virtual cinema and green screen and all. And this was like that. It was like you are on a set of Cleopatra. So it's a very diverse show. And you have to basically have all the, you can use every skill that you ever picked up on any kind of show before. You can really use on something like that. But really, it's always, as a cinematographer, you're always really dealing with the same how you tell the story and the basic how inform the audience of where they are, what time of the day is, and what's the scene is about. So it's really always, once you adjust to the circumstances of whatever level of production you are, you come back to the same questions always.
Yeah.
Yep.
Obviously in America, Ron Howard was pretty much in all of our lives for a very long time, both as an actor and as a filmmaker. What were some of the filmmakers that you guys looked up to when you were coming up in Croatia?
Go ahead, Igor.
American filmmakers?
Sure, but also Croatian. Yeah. I'll have less knowledge of the Croatian ones, but
I think I learned the most just watching a Taxi Driver with Paul Schrader's commentary. I think that was kind of a light bulb that went into my mind, because basically what he was talking about, he was saying that they were trying to make a documentary of Travis's mind, Travis, the main character of the Taxi Driver. I was like, what does that mean? How do you make a documentary of somebody's mind? And then he started to talk about subjective filmmaking, and I started to listen and read a little bit more what he's saying, and I learned about subjective ways of expression in cinema, and that is, I would say, half of the filmmaking is that. Obviously, not all projects are dealing with the same thing. Some projects take more objective point of view, a little bit more distant and so on. But that was something that I learned a lot. I think Scorsese and him, obviously, a lot. And yeah, go ahead, man.
I was first time I remember watching a film and realizing that photography is an element of cinema. Was I didn't know anything about film photography or anything about how films are made, but it was the Blade Runner when I realized that there's a photographic aspect of this film that's very strong, and that it's part of the experience, and that's as important in anything else in the film. And in that film, I still think it's the truth. It's the experience of the world that's constructed photographically. That is one of the most important part of that experience of watching that film. So I think that would be the first time I realized there's a photographer involved. I didn't know the word cinematographer yet. There's a photographer involved in in making this experience. It's because it's cinema really is, for me still, it's more the experience. It's not, story is just is one part of that experience. So that was then, but I still always have a couple of films that I always go back to and look for inspiration whenever I'm starting a new project. And it's been 3 or 4 films that are changing. Some one year is this, but it's always 2 or 3 films. And one of the films that I always see whenever I'm starting something new and just need inspiration is the Michael Mann's Insider. Mm-hmm. I see that twice a year probably. And In the Mood for Love, and it's because it's such a different films. It's just always completely different storytelling, different stories, everything's so different, and it just always gets me going and inspires me to then look at something else while I'm looking for inspiration, for references. So those 2 films are like I think I see them every year a couple of times. So
it's funny because when did In the Mood for Love come out? Like 2003?
Yes,
something like that. Maybe
I'm not sure.
But it's funny because I grew up watching like skateboard films and music videos and obviously your Star Warses and The Matrix and Fight Club and all that. And but there was this director's, I don't know if you've heard of it, there's this director's series of like box set of DVDs where it's like Mark Romanek and Spike Jonze and all that. And for me and a lot of my friends, that was like the moment where we're like, oh, there's a lot of fun stuff you could do here. But now, because now it seems like In the Mood for Love is like everyone's like, well, that's the movie. That's the movie that made me want to be a cinematographer. Like that thing had such an impact on so many people from across generations.
I saw it recently with my son. He saw it for the first time. We saw it projected at the IFC Center in New York, and he was speechless when we got us. So it's not a. I thought this is maybe something that was important for me because it came out at the time when I was just out of film school and I wanted to do it. But he had he is not interested to be a filmmaker, and he had the same reaction. It's really a special.
Yeah.
Special.
Yeah, I think also lately it became a kind of again in focus the Russian film Come and See.
Oh goodness!
And that's the movie that kind of shook me, like literally shook me. I couldn't believe this. I was in cinema. I think I was like end of high school or beginning of college, and I was shocked. I was like I couldn't eat afterwards. It's not
a film I would see twice a year.
No, but I have
maybe once every 10 years.
No, I've seen it much more. I watch it a lot.
I'm just joking.
I also watch it in parts. I just go and watch like certain scenes because that's the best. Also, if you want to analyze things, so you don't get drawn into the film too much, so you can actually observe it. And that film is like something to analyze. Like
it's becoming more and more known. More people refer to it. I remember ago, nobody really knew about that film. It's becoming, I hear about it.
And it's incredible. I mean, it's an incredible story because the director stopped working after that. Because it's also his wife, Larissa Shepitko, who I really highly recommend to watch her films. She was an incredible filmmaker, and you can see in both of their work of both of them, there are many similarities. There are certain scenes that are almost kind of mirror images of each other. I think that those films are amazing.
Yeah, I think it's probably becoming more popular because obviously, like right now in the past like 5-10 years, if you type in cinematographer on YouTube, it's like 17 videos of Roger Deakins. Like how like every magician is David Blaine. It's like that's for DPs. So I think just a lot of younger people who don't necessarily have a deep knowledge of film history he suggests it all the time. He's like, that's my favorite movie. It's hella dark. And it's funny because I'm just imagining someone going like, oh yeah, I love The Big Lebowski. Let me go watch this come and see flick. And then they just leave devastated. This guy likes this. Okay. Yeah, those are great films. I'm so happy the Criterion Collection exists, because otherwise all these things would just be so much more difficult to get a hold of. You guys worked on Idea Man with 2 other DPs, but the majority of the film is archival. And I was wondering, why were there 4 DPs? And how much involvement did you guys have because all the interviews are in like that box, but there's also some stop motion elements. And I was wondering if there was anything else that maybe I wasn't picking up on that the 4 of you kind of did, and how was your working relationship like between the 4 of you? We'll start with
yeah. Basically, I was hired to DP on this because I worked with Imagine Entertainment, the company that produced it. I worked with Justin Wilkes, who is the producer there. So the beginning was very interesting because I didn't work with Ron before, and I was like under the impression that directors like this, you would come in and you would basically execute things what directors have in mind, and here and there help. But he was a very interesting case because he came in and he was just like asking people what they think. So it was like 7 of us sitting in a room, and everyone was pitching ideas. And then so we came up with the idea of The Cube, which is actually one of his films.
Right.
One of his films is done in a cube. It's actually kind of like a self reflection that he had, and the cube was kind of almost like this psychology session, room for psychology sessions. So we thought that it would be a good idea to create that. So we built it physically, and on the first interview was with Frank Oz, and so that was kind of like a blueprint for other interviews. And then we did some stop motion as well. And then at some point there were other interviews to be done, and then I asked Vanja if he can come in and continue. So Vanja then took over from there.
The process was a lot of what the film was going to be came out of interviews. So it was first all the interviews were done, and then then the what the film was going to be started shaping up. But it was hard to get a hold of all these interviewees, so they never knew when the next interview was going to be shot. So when I took over from Igor, my task was basically to standardize this the way that that first interview was done, so that it could be recreated anywhere in the country anytime. So if there was another interview coming in 3 weeks and Igor's not available or I'm not available, or we know exactly how to put the box together, how to put the lighting together, so it's always shot in the same place. So we then went as far as first I recreated what Igor did with Frank Oz, but then we went as far as like we did a precise floor plan of which lenses are we using, how close are we coming to the actors, how far this light is from this, so that it could be basically always recreated. And sometimes they would shoot a couple of interviews in a row in the same week, and then there would be maybe a month or two where there would be, right, Igor? There'd be months in between. So that was why there were more DPs, because it was impossible to schedule all these interviews ahead of time.
Sure. And what was the just for novelty? What was the kind of set? They're gorgeous looking setups, but I tried starting to count at one point like how many cameras there were, but then, and this happens to me, I'm sure it happens to you, but I started watching the documentary instead of analyzing it, so I stopped paying attention.
That's a sign. It's a sign. It's probably a decent documentary.
Yeah,
if it gets you. Yeah.
But it is a gorgeous looking shot, and I was just wondering, how people get asked all the time, like, or I should say, I get asked all the time, hey, yeah, we want this interview to look like masterclass, and I'm like, well, do you have a masterclass budget? Because I'm pretty sure you don't. But this had a similar kind of look to it, so I was wondering if you could walk us through what that standardization was for the lighting and camera setups.
Yeah, I mean, the lighting was very simple. It was like, one light, a little bit higher angle light, and cameras. I like to shoot with multiple cameras. I do a lot of work with Errol Morris, and he's known to shoot 4, 5, 6, 8 camera interviews. So I think this one we started with 4 cameras. And but the idea is that you shoot let's say you shoot 2 hours with one setup, or like an hour with one setup, then you change the setup, and all those 4 cameras change, and then you shoot for another hour. And then so basically it looks like you have 15 shots, and in reality you have 4 cameras, right. Because then it's cut in that way that it looks like you have more cameras than this. But the idea was to kind of have oftentimes I think interviews are shot very distant, cameras are very distant from subjects, so some of the shots, we went really kind of a little bit more obscure angles, camera is close. I often shoot with diopters in narrative or in documentaries, coming close and shooting with diopters kind of changes a little bit, the background falls out of focus, so we played with that a lot. And Vanja, can continue.
Yes, we basically, it was 2 cameras. We had one camera. Eventually, we figured out that it's the best to have one camera on a dolly and one camera on a G-bar. So we quickly, once we knew what the positions that where we, as Igor described, they were each, after, I think, every 20, 30 minutes, we would change the camera positions, but we wanted it to happen as quickly as possible. So we basically, before the interviews even came, we marked the positions where the dolly was going to go and where the crane, like a G-bar was going to go, so that we could change basically like a press of a button, and we would be in a different positions without the interviewee even having to, leave the chair.
Right, just get them some water real quick, and
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So,
and I think the first interview was a little bit more involved, because that was the skeleton of the interview with Frank Oz. So that's why we had more cameras, because they knew that, because Frank was as a collaborator and kind of a long time working partner, had a lot to say, so they just wanted to capture as many angles as possible with him. And then probably due to budgetary restrictions, just the cameras went down to 2 cameras.
You had 3 cameras?
I think we had 4, but I had Sony, I had Venice, and then I had FX9, FX9, I think. Yeah,
that's pretty common.
Yeah. So we had few FX9s and one Venice.
Yeah, I did see in an interview with Ron Howard that he kind of said that after the Frank Oz interview, the whole thing kind of changed a bit. I was wondering if you could speak to that, maybe if you knew kind of what he was referencing. It was one of those short, morning show interviews. He was like, yeah, we did that, and then the whole thing changed, and they didn't follow up with him about what that meant.
I think it's basically what happens is you have an idea for a documentary, and that idea changes after you do, a major interview, and then you start actually restructuring your idea, trying to restructuring what the documentary is going to be about. I think that's what it is. I don't know for sure, but it often happens in documentaries that you have an idea, it's going into that direction, it's going to be this kind of a documentary, but then once you do that first interview, then you do a paper cut, and then after that you have much clearer idea where it's headed.
One thing I think that might have changed in terms of composition, and I'm not sure, Igor, we never talked about that. I'm not sure if that's, but I think it was getting clearer that archival footage was going to be used as kind of projected on the walls inside of the box. So
were those actual projections?
No, it was put in the post, but we already knew that was going to happen. So we, the compositions were then even more deliberately, off framing was basically framed so that you could there's enough space in the background to put in these projections, and also. Then, once we knew that, we wanted to have depth of field that's deeper so that it would be in focus. The backgrounds would always be in focus. But that came out of the idea that was developing as the editor started putting footage together. And that's maybe what visually changed.
Yeah.
For the interview part, if he was maybe referring to also editorial style, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not the best at interviewing editors because I'm only a, amateur editor myself, but that had to be a big hard drive. That's a lot of archival.
Yeah.
Yes.
Was Ron doing the interviews?
Yes.
Ron was doing most of the interviews that it's my first interview. Ron got COVID that morning.
Oh.
So he had to do it remotely. And, we had to put something together really quickly. We didn't have the right equipment, because we were not expecting this. So we quickly had to put something together, like a Zoom interview like this, where we, put the monitor as close to the lens as possible and set it up for him to do it remotely. And it worked. He still did a great interview. So, but he was there, I think, every other time.
What's funny is because of this podcast, I carry what ended up being an incredibly small package where on a moment's notice, I can hook up the camera to the Zoom with just a USB to HDMI adapter and get the exact, and the audio comes through just like, and I've used that quite a bit. That has been a production saver a couple times.
Good to know.
But yeah, I was wondering kind of like, I actually watched Ron Howard's masterclass, so I have a decent idea on what he thinks of directing academically, but I was wondering if you could shine a light on what he's like to work with collaboratively.
Go ahead, Igor. You had a lot of time with Ron in pre-production where it just came. The whole process.
Yeah, it wasn't that much time. It's he's as I said, he's incredibly collaborative. He's smart. He's super pleasant. The atmosphere on set is really easygoing. There's no tension whatsoever, and he knows what he wants. And when he gets it, he's like, okay, that's enough. Like we would do this stop motion, and like when you start doing it, you basically want to do like 6 shots now because we were thinking of we're gonna do like a few shots, and then after 2 shots he said that's enough, and I was like, well, what? Wait,
I'm having fun.
So because we just did this chair moving, and we did this thing with this train cars moving like in stop animation, and that was it. It was like, okay, that's it. We have it. The more and we still had like the day was like maybe we were like in 7th hour or something like that. We all used to work like 12-hour days, and so we were all shocked, like, oh, that's it, So yeah, he definitely knows what he wants.
Yeah, I've heard Spielberg's kind of the same way, where he'll be like 3 lines into a script and he's just like, or like a page, and he just goes, yeah. We're not going to use the rest of that. Let's move on.
Yeah.
Nowadays with digital, everyone's like, we're going to shoot the entire script from one angle and then we'll cover it. At least that's been my experience.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like it takes courage to be creative. It takes courage to not to cover, and takes courage not to do things in one shot, or to do things out of focus, or to just like do anything that is a little bit different, because people are so used to the usual coverage, and that's and it's beautiful when you actually meet people that don't, and that they're just like know that you can do scenes, a scene on a close-up of an actor, and everyone else that is talking doesn't matter. It's all about what this person is experiencing, and you just stay there. And I think stuff like that is amazing. When you experience that, when you're on set, when those things happen, that's like poetry.
Boom. Yeah, I've that idea of earlier in my career, that idea of, oh crap, I gotta cover all this, pretty much only came from working with directors my age, in our early 20s. And now, yeah, the idea of someone just being like, I know exactly what I want. As a DP, you're like, sweet. I'm not going to give myself more work for no reason. Let's just do this.
But it's not just that. It has to be motivated. It has to. There must be a reason behind it. Because if there is no reason behind it, I'm against it completely. It has to be something that like it tells you. It tells you like a certain perspective, or it tells you like where the narrative is going. Just like it has to have that. Otherwise, it just if you just do it because it's fun thing to do, you might regret. You might regret in the editing.
Yeah. Did you guys ever edit your own films earlier on, like in film school or whatever like that?
I have in film school, but not beyond film school.
Yeah.
Same, yeah.
Yeah, because
I had experience like that was educational for me early on. I was working as a news cameraman for a little while, and it was obviously in the days before internet. So you had to send your footage for wherever you are in the world. You had to send your footage via satellite, which could only have. Which you could only do in several places in any country, and it was very expensive. So you were respected if you covered everything that needed to be covered, but also basically edit in camera,
right?
Not overshoot. So it was like, but not undershoot either, because there's always, you had to match whatever the competition had. So that was a very good training for me, because you had to sometimes when in a difficult situations, you had to think about how to get every angle that's necessary, not overshoot, and kind of put it in order so it's already in some shape that could be understood what how it could be used. So that experience of in-camera editing was something that I think was one of the best bits of education for me.
Yeah, I mean that's more or less what I was about to get at, but that's kind of the hard mode version. Is being an editor definitely helped me be a better DP. But now that you mention it, when I was in film school before I went to college, we shot on 16 millimeter, and we were able to edit, but they only gave us like 1 to 3 reels.
Right.
So we ended up just shooting. If anyone just had like a simple scene, which you'd have to, because you only had like 7 minutes on a reel or whatever, 3-4 minutes, you would just shoot it in order, and same thing, except because we were shooting MOS for everything, you didn't get that nice little thing we got on mini DV, which was the end of someone saying action at the beginning of every take. Just chin, and then somebody going off. That was always fun.
That's a good example how medium dictates how you tell the story. It's like, when I was a reporter, I was looking at, for example, what people were doing with the 30 feet rolls in the, Second World War, they had to, that this is how much film we have. This is, and there was a lot of thinking going behind this. I'm going to position myself here, and then I'm going to roll for this, so it's like, it was a lot of, you had to think about every shot in a ways that, that you don't necessarily have to today, but then it shows. I always say this. When you go to any family's home, and you pull out the photo albums from from my dad, for example. He bought the camera in the 60s, and then he was all these gorgeous black and white films. He was not a photographer. He was just it was expensive, and he wanted to do so he was thinking about how he get the well exposed negatives. So he put people in the right places. He was thinking about the light. It wasn't just like whatever, just I'll get exposure anyways. He was thinking about the light because he was forced to think about the light. And then sometimes in the 70s, when every camera all of a sudden had the flash, you see every family has a photo album from the 70s. All of a sudden, everything looks exactly the same, right? Exactly the same. It's like completely. And then now it's all everybody's taking pictures with their phones. So that would be interesting. I was always thinking about maybe creating an exhibition of like evolution of family albums, from different parts of the world.
That'd be great. Honestly, I'd go to that.
Yeah.
That show.
You can start a museum. You can start a museum like that, and just let just change every month or 2 months. You change it.
We should Kickstarter it. I'll put down $5. That actually does bring up an interesting question, though, which would be, now that not all digital cameras make the same image, but, all digital cameras make a pretty excellent image. It comes down to, and at least in my opinion, it comes down to, between Venice Red and ARRI and Canon or whatever, it comes down to what your favorite workflow is more than anything. How do you make your mark on something that can be so easily affected by a colorist that maybe you don't get a lot of contact with, or those choices aren't set in stone like they were in film? So yeah, how do you maintain creative control over that image?
I mean, I try to create a workflow that is kind of ironclad. So I'm a little bit of a dictator in that. So basically, I mean, I spend a lot of time with DIT, and CDLs go out, and the next day you get stills. They have to match the stills that we send to the lab. And the moment a film goes in post, there was an example where one colorist changed it before I came on, and I made them change back because the look is there. I really don't think you cannot search for look in the post. Look has to be there. It has to be imprinted in the material in some way. Yes, it could be changed like 100 ways, but you don't want it to be changed because there is a reason why I spend time thinking how this is going to look. And that might not be the look that is the best look. There must be better looks. But it's my look. And it's something that I built, I stand behind. And that's why I was hired to be a DP on the project. And I think it's, we have to stand up for this. And I think when people know that you're serious about it, first of all, you meet with colorists before you start a project. And you make sure that they know that this is the way you want to do. Or if you don't, then as soon as they start, they please follow the things. So when we start, you're already at this starting position where we left. You can come in and you can even it out if it needs to be done, or you can, do a power window here and there, things like that before we work together. But it has to be there, because if you start reinventing it from scratch, it's like, why? Right. Why would you work so much in production than to change it later on?
My philosophy was always to do as much in front of the camera as possible, and I take, like Igor, the prep a lot and the workflow very seriously. I involve the colorists very early on. I like to have their input, but then once we lock things, I don't want to mess with it until the final grade. Only if I'm really in trouble would I ask the DAT to do something to the image as we're shooting. I try to do it all with lights and with traditional photographic means,
Right.
and that way the look is built. It's like it's constructed in front of the camera. Basically, it's natural contrast. The contrast is such because you lit it that way, not because you adjusted a couple of knobs. So that was always for me basically the LUT is like my stock, and I don't mess with it. It's like I decide how I'm going to expose it. And I tried always to use ACES because I think ACES is more consistent and gives me more control over ACES as a color space, as a whole workflow. There's been trends, early on when we transitioned to digital, where and it was obvious that most cameras look the same. There's been a trend that that you can adjust anything in the post. There's been a trend to try to find the funky lens, the lens that will do something to the image that then is the baked in, something that the colorist cannot do. So you'll do something that nobody will later be able to change, and it became gimmicky. It's just like you have you now have manufacturers who are doing like just this like lenses that are just not very good lenses.
Yeah.
Just because they have a look. I always thought that was a gimmick. I think cinematography is created in front of the lens, not so much beyond the lens.
Yeah.
Sense.
No, totally. I mean, good Lord, how many people shot on K35s for like a full decade, just because they were goofy.
Right.
Look, you shoot them wide open and you're like, there's a look. And you're like, yeah, it's a look.
Right.
I've found ACES to be finicky, but then again, I don't work with like Picture Shop or Company 3.
I think it's getting less. I've been using ACES now on every project since 2017, I think.
Mm.
It was the first project I did with ACES was Crazy Rich Asians, and I just know it makes you work a little harder on the set because it tells you the truth, Just but then you get to. I always feel like I'm much closer to the final product, and when I get to the final grade, the colors can really help improve things rather than fix things. Just some things that you wouldn't even be with with just regular RGB. You wouldn't even be able to tell how some lights are off balance.
Mm-hmm.
So since I switched to ACES, I think all my final color grading was much more efficient, and I got to the result I wanted much faster.
Yeah, and I'm sure that whenever they're involved, the VFX team is probably happy with that too, because Lord knows what they've been getting. The hour has flown by, so I will let you go, but I wanted to ask one final question, which was that one thing I didn't really know about Jim Henson until watching this doc was just how involved he was in experimental film, and how much he wanted to explore art in all its forms, and puppetry was kind of not a side thought, but it wasn't, he had competing passions. And I was wondering, when was the last time either of you were able to explore an art form or try something new that kind of excited you?
You mean something like new in a different medium, or
sure, yeah, a new medium, or just maybe something you did behind the camera that excited, just anything that kind of allowed you to push beyond your usual, I suppose routine is not the right word, but some to that effect.
But in terms of like cinematography, that film that I mentioned, which was like 10 days with no equipment, just a camera on the shoulder, that was, I think I did this when I was forced to work with such limitations. I came up with some techniques that I was later able to use on bigger shows. But for me, it's really still photography. I started as a still photographer. I ended up as a cinema accidentally because in our hometown there was no college for still photography, and I heard that there's a cinematography department at the film academy. I thought maybe that's that might be similar to photography. I don't know. So I ended up as a cinematographer accidentally, but I still because I'm not a professional photographer, I do a lot of just the work kind of just for me, just experimental work just for me that I don't show anybody. And maybe I think I have like 10, 15 photos that maybe I'll show to somebody, maybe to Igor in a couple of years, I think.
put it at the end of the exhibition of all the family photo albums, and they're just your stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know. For me, the Night Off was the TV series was a project where I could play with framing in a way that I was allowed to actually frame it the way I want, and that was really freeing. And we would do certain things that are just really off, really strange and weird. And also many times working with Errol Morris, who really likes to experiment.
Yeah,
I mean, he really likes to experiment, and it's beautiful to be on set with him and like we just play with like who's gonna outdo who, like when he comes up with a shot, and I'm like, oh my God, where did he find it? And I try to do it, and it's oftentimes it's very off and weird and unconventional in a way, So I think those are the moments when I could play and be like a kid,
It's funny is the past two documentaries I worked on, both of them were like, we kind of want to do this Errol Morris thing, and it's like, damn, that guy really set the tone for documentaries going past like 10 years.
Have you seen that? What's the name of the Pigeon Tunnel, Igor?
No, he's talking about Interlatron.
But I'm asking, have you seen the Pigeon Tunnel that Igor did with Errol Morris?
No, write that down.
Absolutely. I think actually Wormwood is even more interesting, and Wormwood is something that that I did the narrative part. I mean, narrative within documentary, and I think that's more interesting than Pigeon Tunnel because it was yeah.
I will absolutely.
And also interviews are done with 10 cameras.
Yeah, what I liked about the Pigeon Tunnel, because Wormwood, obviously you had narrative live action pieces and different. This was just interviewing one person, and how you made so visually interesting, and it must have been very super complicated to set it up the way it did. So I just because it was just basically interviewing the camera and a couple of set pieces. That's why I thought it was really remarkable.
No, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, like I said at the beginning, I've been just watching stuff nonstop because work slowed down in LA. So those, put those right on the list and watch them tonight. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, guys. It was a great chat. And I'd love to have both of you back on individually or otherwise, because there's a bunch of stuff y'all have done that I'd love to dig in deeper on, especially Nurse Jackie. It's my girlfriend's favorite show, and she would be mad if I didn't say you guys did a great job on that.
Excellent. You made it easy. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Frame and Reference is an Owlbot production. It's produced and edited by me, Kenny McMillan, and distributed by Pro Video Coalition. If you'd like to support the podcast directly, you can do so on Patreon by going to frameandrefpod.com, where you can get all the episodes, and clicking the Patreon button. It's always appreciated, and as always, thanks for listening.